Animals are some of our best friends and companions. But beyond these, they can also help us through the storms of life. Life was lonely for one girl, Iris Grace Helmshaw. But just when everyone thought things would stay the same, a perfect partner appeared. Iris Grace is a 6-year-old autistic girl. Her mother, Arabella Carter Johnson, was despondent since she scarcely communicated during the first several years of her life. The family then adopted a kitten with whom Iris formed an instant attachment, and she began to open up. As we saw them relax on the sofa when we returned home with a kitten, it was as if they were old friends. The cat's little body was nestled against Iris as they sat side by side. After one of Iris's favorite African lullabies, we named her Tula, which means calm in Zulu. Tula was by Iris's side from the moment she met her, sleeping in her arms like a guardian angel on her first night. Iris would lovingly stroke Tula's ears and long whiskers while reading her books or grasp her tail at the tip, nonchalantly twiddling with the fur as if it were her own. As a result of Tula's arrival, our morning routine changed. Iris, who previously struggled to get out of bed before 9 a.m., now seemed to have springs in her feet. She awoke with a massive smile on her face with her new buddy beside her saying, "More cat," as Tula followed her to the stairs. Tula's compassionate demeanor had an instant and profound impact on Iris. She began giving Tula directions. When Tula was trying to play on her iPad, she would say, "Sit, kitty." She spoke it with conviction that the kitty sat down right away. Unlike other youngsters of age, Iris did not continually maul, stroke, or pick up the kitten. Their friendship was the foundation of their relationship. Tula sat and watched Iris play with bated breath, occasionally joining in. Tula sat beside Iris at her table, imitating her actions as she played with Play-Doh. I couldn't believe my eyes. This tiny kitten was practicing the fundamentals of play therapy. The more I thought about it, the more I realized how ideal a cat would be as a friend for a child on the spectrum. They were able to understand each other in a way that would never be able to. There was an evident connection between them, one that we'd been looking for all this time. If Iris awoke in the middle of the night, Tula was there to comfort her. It was as though she intuitively knew what she needed to accomplish. She'd carry a small toy in her mouth and toss it beside Iris. Iris would play with the toy for a time, and the movement in her fingers seemed to help her relax. Tula would then curl up next to her and purr as Iris slipped back to sleep quietly. From the entryway, I'd keep an eye on them. Iris would have requested to go downstairs if I'd gone in, but with Tula present, she was content to stay in bed. And when Iris was upset during the day, Tula didn't run away, but instead stayed near to her, diverting her from her problems. I was preparing supper one evening with Iris's father, PJ, while our dynamic duo was playing with the bubbles in the sink. Tula was by Iris's side, and there were squeals of delight as more bubbles were blown on the window by her hand. It had been a long time since I'd seen Iris so relaxed around water. She'd avoided it for months, and even a drop of water on her skin would send her into a tizzy. She'd run up to me screaming, rubbing her body all over my clothes to get the water off her skin, and I could see how terrible it was for her. We began to see changes as she engaged with Tula, touching her fur and following her lead. I had the most fantastic hug, a magnificent gesture of devotion when she turned to me with a huge smile and her arms outstretched. Then, much to her amazement, she turned to PJ and did the same, and Tula was next. I began to laugh, and another approached me. I couldn't believe our good fortune. Her embraces were really infrequent, and they were extremely moving. Tula was inexperienced and needed instruction, which influenced Iris's behavior. Tula had entire faith in Iris, and with that trust came the duty for Iris to treat her with respect and compassion. Iris was going through her paintbrushes one evening. Tula received 3 of the smallest brushes that she had chosen. Tula began to play, wondering how to deal with them at first, and Iris jumped with excitement that her buddy was sharing her enthusiasm. Tula would be there every time Iris went to her painting table, patiently waiting and watching, enthralled as the work progressed. When the temptation to play became too overwhelming, Iris would admonish her, "Sit, kitty," which she did dutifully. Tula would stay at Iris's side, whether we were out in the countryside watching the water from the bridge or studying the bluebells in the woods. Because of Iris's water phobia, I had plenty of time and space to contemplate in my own bath. Tula had gotten onto the end of the bath and was brushing her whiskers against my neck one evening. Tula placed one paw on my shoulders, then two, then three, four, before walking down my body and into the water and swimming around. My mind wandered, and I was enthralled by a fresh discovery. Tula enjoyed the water. Iris's bath time problems had gotten so difficult to manage that they were causing us all distress. Since Iris seems to be okay with water play at the sink, could Tula be the answer? My strategy of enlisting Tula's help next time. I tried to bathe my Iris didn't seem to be working. Iris began to wail as soon as her body touched the water, and Tula entered only to gale up out again. She then returned with a piece of jewelry. She jumped up onto the bath side and continued to play with it. For a little while, this distracted Iris, and she stopped weeping. Everything fell silent. Tula got into the water after I sat back and took a big breath, not wanting to break the silence. Iris greeted her with a grin and said, "Hi, cat," which made me cry. Tula had to be the cleanest cat in the neighborhood because she showered with Iris so frequently. She even allowed me to wash her hair, demonstrating to Iris that shampooing her hair was okay. I started to lose track of all the ways Tula was assisting Iris. When I told people about her, I'm sure they thought I was crazy or that she had some sort of training. I couldn't believe it myself at times. Our home education room had replaced my photographic studio. Everything was exceptionally well thought out. A cozy reading nook in one corner, a desk for writing, or more formal courses in a play area. There was just one issue. I was on my own. My ludicrous attempts at teaching were a complete failure. Tula entered the room and sat down next to me. More than ever, I needed her. "How do you do it, Tula?" I was perplexed. Iris continues to move away. I was starting to regret my decision to homeschool because I felt so hopeless. Iris knew her alphabet, numbers up to 30, and could read a few small sentences, so we had made some progress. She was also able to recognize shapes and comprehend size and volume. I had covered everything on the preschool curriculum that she needed to know, but Iris was about to become 5, reception age, and I was having trouble keeping her attention. As I sat with Tula, I saw where I was going wrong. The room was set up like a classroom, and the exercises and worksheets I was presenting to Iris were irrelevant. She was unconcerned. I needed to take advantage of her exceptional concentration span and activities that were meaningful to her. I took Tula out into the garden with me, and we looked at Iris, who was sitting on her favorite tree stump. I needed to design a curriculum that focused on her passions. I'd educate her in the garden or on the bridge across the stream, anywhere she wanted to be. That would be okay if she needed to move. We'd find a way to work around it. That afternoon, I started. The first task would be to choose a theme. Cat seemed to be the obvious choice. I scribbled the word cat in the middle of a piece of paper and drew a circle around it. Then drew other circles around it with the various subjects: English, music, art, ICT, science, maths, geography, and history. I could never know what would work with Iris. If I pushed her too hard, she'd become enraged. But I knew I had to start with something she had previously expressed an interest in. On the sofa, there was a book open, and I realized she was reading The Owl and the Pussycat. Under a starlit sky, a fat brown owl sat with a tabby cat and a pea-green boat in the blue sea with a pot of honey, some money, and a guitar. That's what I'd do. We'd manufacture a boat out of cardboard box, complete with props and, of course, Tula as the cat. We'd practice writing the letters and reciting the words while working on the poem's vocabulary. I designed initiatives for the art segment, such as making cat masks to inspire Iris to play. To add some science, we'd weigh Tula, compare cat sizes, and investigate the functions of whiskers and other body components. We would count the whiskers on the mask to practice math, sort her cat toys by size, count them, and begin to introduce addition. I have a lovely book, The Cat, 3,500 Years of the Cat in Art by Caroline Bugler, that we could use for history, perhaps going into the Egyptians as well. It was going to be a fantastic feline adventure. But first, we had to construct our boat. I dragged a bunch of blue cloth behind me as I carried a carton box outside. I surrounded the boat with a sea of cotton and added a few sensory toys, a crab, some fish, and a lobster. I stuffed a treasure bag inside, along with a jar of honey, Iris's ukulele, and binoculars to take in the scenery. Tula and I squeezed in with her while I chatted to her about the sea and the voyage we were about to go on. It was a squeeze, but Iris was grateful for our company. She felt the texture of the treasure bag, golden money, and seashells as she rotated them in her hands. Then she nudged me, and I accepted her lead and jumped overboard. Tula followed Iris out the door and into the house. I was disheartened. Was it all a bit too much? The majority of autism experts' advice suggests teaching using simple concepts and instructions, broken down into phases. On many levels, my strategy was working in the opposite direction. But then I noticed her coming back with the iPad. Back on board, she opened Google Earth, zoomed into South Africa, and spat across the Pacific Ocean, circling the globe and pausing every now and then to peer over the horizon with her binoculars. She wasn't simply being silly, she was planning her journey. It went above and beyond my expectations. Her play was driven by a fascination for nature and its beauty, as well as a curiosity about things' function. I read the poem to Iris, who laughed at the section about dancing in the moonlight. I used a puppet and a mask to get her to interact. And later that afternoon, I typed down the main phrases from the Pokemon cards, which Iris read frequently. A painting sat under a stack of unfinished parts. It was frequently viewed, but never completed. She used tools to give texture to the paint while it dried, and she left with the light when she noticed a layer beneath it becoming uncovered. What an incredible story. Do you think we could get this video to 20K likes? Iris deserves more than that, so don't be shy and show her some love.